Good afternoon. How are you? Well, today is just beautiful. It's 60 degrees. It's a little overcast, but there's blue sky as well. The temperature at 60 is sweet, and the wind that's at 18 feels good because it's sort of blowing this comfortable air on you, and the humidity is 17%. So that's our setting for our walk. And it's an interesting offset to what's happening in our daily lives in the swampland that is the District of Columbia. I thought I'd pull out one issue. There are always several issues every day, in the sense that Trump says things he doesn't intend to do to get people crazy. And among some of those are things he really does intend to get done. And he hopes by bombarding us with subjects that we won't scrutinize and analyze what he's doing. Now, for me and for many people who came from working families and became a professional or made their way in life, it was clear that learning is one of the foundations to arrive at equal opportunity, equal justice before the law. And as a kid in the Bronx, and I can't say why, I wanted to go to school 7 days a week, and it's a good thing because my parents didn't have money. It was I don't know, poor is right. We didn't know what we didn't have, to be fair. And TV wasn't as universal as it is now, all the different communication devices. So for some people, myself included, education was kind of my escape route from the Bronx. As much as I loved the streets and everything about it, I remember thinking that my dad couldn't help me do it, although I think he put things in front of me that made me curious. And I think that if something catches someone when they're young, it makes a big difference because it organizes you in a way that having nothing that rouses your curiosity can't do. So what is all this about? What it's about is Trump is really against education. And there's plenty of evidence of this. It is questionable how much education he actually had, and the objective evidence of a man who's not certainly brilliant and maybe not even smart in many areas is a person who's unstudied. Unfinished would be a gentle way to describe the boorishness that is Trump. He's like a wannabe mobster, and at the same time he wants to be respected, but he splashes around gold and phony gold, mostly the latter I suspect, as kind of a garish declaration about how special he is. So a person who's this empty within him doesn't have a connection with other people. He doesn't feel other people. The stories of how in his own family he would trample over his brother in his way to receive the affection and power from his father is myriad, and there have been lots of things written about it. So what is the evidence that matters about his anti-intellectual, anti-educational stance? And it's he wants to zero out the Department of Education. He wants to dumb down the nation insofar as those who have an appetite or possibility of advancement by education. He wants to limit that because he believes, and this is not true, but he believes that if you have an education, you become a Democrat, you become a liberal. It's just not so. And if he'd ever gone to class, he'd probably, he might realize it, but might ignore it, because he's sought to gather among him a kind of public outrage by people who don't even know how he deserves them by his agenda. And so the education has become critical because there are people in America who don't understand that an analytical mind is one that advances the individual, the community, and everyone around them. It's why you have such an aversion, I guess, for science, which probably means he'd have a lot of trouble with a simple algebra expression. And this may not be important to a lot of people, but we expect more of leaders who have the capacity to actually lead. Now, he wants to get rid of the Department of Education, but he can't do it without congressional support. So how is he going to do that? They haven't said. And Linda McMahon, who's in charge of the department, she has a plan, but we haven't seen that yet either. The expiration date of the Department of Education prompts the question about what do we do about student loans? What do we do? From kindergarten to 12th grade, there are 50 million students. There are 100,000 public schools. There are 32,000 private schools. Trump says this is great for the state. They should take it over again. Now, I'm talking to you from a county, Loudoun County in Northern Virginia, as I walk on our famous dirt road that it's got a $1 billion budget on the education portion. It's the largest percentage of the budget. And in my opinion, they're making bad deals with these energy centers, these data centers that challenge both the supply of water in any community and the supply of power sufficient for these data centers. So they're making a deal with the devil. Now, this is I guess a wealthy county in the sense of its capacity to have such oversized budget, it strikes me. So when he says he's going to push this all onto the states, what's he saying is he's going to empower them to pay what they do not have to pay. And that means that we are crippling the opportunity of people to get educated in a way that both fulfills the individual and makes us competitive. When I ran for Congress a long time ago, the incumbent, whom I liked but disagreed with, I would say education doesn't cost, it pays. Meaning, it is a public investment in individuals that bring back to the community so much more than they could or would without an education. Again, formal education, the kind that I embraced, is not something everybody has to do. I think I've said before, my brother, very smart, he didn't go past high school. He could code anything he wanted. And we both had this science mathematical interest, but he just dominated that in his own, and others do. My brother could put together and take apart a car. He could do all sorts of photography, miracles, and I have some of these same interests, but he turned it into a way of life for himself. So we can't ignore the fact that getting rid of the Department of Education and these methods of providing a foundation for people who would start businesses and hire others and is at risk. And it's part of the 2025 project. So you see, when people talk about the 2025 project and said during the campaign, watch out, it may be coming, this is part and parcel of that. Now, North Carolina has announced that if they go forward with this state, among many others, will be at a very precarious point in providing the necessary education. The famous quote I like from Jefferson is, "A nation that expects to be ignorant and free expects what never was and never will be." And Trump, he doesn't want the country to be free. He wants the people to be subordinate. He wants them to be tools in his chest of monarchical government. So he does not want to promote us or have us go forward or have the best and the brightest in the government. He wants to limit this nation's potential. It's like at every turn. If you turn from education to foreign affairs, to air, to RFK Jr. misstating already what measles mean historically and what the challenge is presently. He goes on and on and on. Is he deconstructing and seeking to destroy America as the puppet of Putin, or of a grander strategy with other nation states, North Korea, China, whomever, for himself? Because in the formula that is personal ambition and personal character, it's all about Trump. And some people learned that in the last several days when the question of their employment in agencies, though they had supported Trump, was going to kick them to the side of the road. May still do that, slower, or not paying as much attention when it's not as obvious. But luckily, we're fighting in the court, we're talking on the Hill, we're seeing rallies, we're seeing town meetings going against Republicans' office holders, as well as Democrats who are sitting on their hands and not acting. So that's where we stand today on education. And tomorrow, I expect, when I hear what happens with Zelensky, we'll be talking about that. How, like a mobster, he squeezes somebody, "Give me your minerals and I'll defend you." Well, will he? Is that the transaction? What can Trump do? Trump, like some protection racket, is going to protect Zelensky? I don't see how he does that for his friend Putin. But does he get minerals out of it and make an empty promise that doesn't mean that much to Trump going forward, but is the only exit door that Zelensky may see on the horizon if the United States is going to withdraw the funding that has permitted Ukraine to fight? I don't know who he thinks supports this position, that is Trump, because the flag on my car seems to get, in this fairly conservative voting precinct I'm in, seems to get support as people go by. They say yes. And I think that makes sense. It makes sense that we not be on the side of Russia. It makes sense that we help those that are right there on the border of NATO and who legitimately are concerned about the stability of the region, given the appetite of Putin to make the Soviet Union alive again. So that's what I got. And I say I hope you have as nice a day wherever you are as we're having here. So I say goodbye from our Cathedral of Trees, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.